Now that Gundam SEED Freedom is released in pretty much all major territories around the world and has had resounding success, there are going to be many people wondering what is next for this franchise, and I'm sure that Bandai are cooking things up behind the scenes. There is absolutely no way that they have looked at the amount of money this has made and decided that they are never going to touch the SEED franchise again. So with that in mind, today I want to talk about some of the potential directions that the franchise could go down and some of my pitches for what they could do. Before I dive into it though, I want to hear from you guys, so head on down to the comment section below, let me know your ideas for where the SEED franchise could go next after Freedom, and while you're there, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content and want to see plenty more Gundam videos in the future. Now, one thing I want to preface before I dive into things is that this is a purely hypothetical theorizing video. If nothing more is to come from this universe, then I have absolutely no problem whatsoever. Considering that Freedom was finished by Fukuda-san as a love letter to his late wife and creator Morisawa-san, I completely understand them never wanting to touch this franchise again, and like I said, I have no problem with that whatsoever, and I will be perfectly fine with Freedom being the last we see of these characters and this universe. And by making this video, I mean absolutely no disrespect to them and their legacy. I do have three potential routes this franchise could go down if it so decided to, and we'll start off with some of the smaller ones first of all, and then move on to really the bigger projects that I have an idea for. First off, they could do a side story set during the events of either series, whether that's Seed or Seed Destiny, or at a completely different time, either prior to both of those series, set in between maybe Seed and Seed Destiny, or maybe long afterwards. Basically a side story that is set sometime during this universe, focused on completely different characters. What that story would be and who it would focus on, I have no idea. I don't have a pitch directly for that, but I would prefer them to do something completely different within this universe and, set it around a different set of characters, similar to something like Seed Stargazer, but obviously a lot longer than just a 50-minute OVA. The second idea, which in some ways ties into the idea of doing a side story, and that is adapting the Astray manga. Not only is the material already there, it's written, it is available, all they have to do is, adapt it in a way, animate it, bring in voice actors to do all this stuff, but you have the basic, outline of everything. In fact, you have all the details of the story, all the details of what characters you need to include, so it would be the most simple way, I guess, of continuing this universe because the material is already there, but also because it is pre-existing material, it has a built-in audience. Not only do you have the fans of Seed, but you have fans specifically of this Astray manga. Seed generally has a pretty big built-in fan base, so whatever you do surrounding this would probably be successful, but when you're adapting something that already exists, and from what I'm aware is generally liked, then it's almost a guaranteed success. Whether it'll be a huge success like Freedom has been, I don't know, but it will at the very least have some success to it, which I would say is guaranteed. But now let's dive into my idea for what would be the bigger thing of these three ideas, and that is to do 2 more films. So then you essentially have a trilogy of Seed films. Not only do I think this is a good idea in terms of what I'm going to pitch, not directly the story stuff, but the idea of what you focus on, but also SEED Freedom is a film. It's been very successful, and much like we've seen with other anime films such as Demon Slayer Mugen Train, for example, because of that we got these theatrical events for Demon Slayer because they looked at the box office for that and thought, okay, Demon Slayer is successful on the big screen, and it has been proven since then that Demon Slayer will always be successful on the big screen, even if you're just throwing 2 episodes of the show. So when you have a film set within the Seed franchise that is successful, Bandai are obviously going to want to make more Seed films. From a business standpoint, this is probably the one that makes the most sense and is probably the more likely option. The first of these 2 films, which would technically be the second within this trilogy, would be almost entirely focused on Athrun, and I guess the characters that surround him, people like Kagali, for example, Mayrin Hawk as well. Anyone that's connected to Athrun would have a much bigger role in this than they might have in SEED Freedom. I don't necessarily know what the main storyline would be as such, but it would dive more into his past, his relationship with his parents, and early days of living at the plants and joining Zaft. Essentially all these things that we got glimpses of throughout Seed and Seed Destiny would now be fully fleshed out more into full-on flashbacks and very much ingrained into Athrun's character arc, Athrun's characterization within the film. Cagley would be included in a far more prominent role than she was in Freedom, and I guess it would give a bit more closure and more development to Athrun and Cagley's relationship. Other characters like Kira, Laka, Shinn, Luna Maria, they'd still be involved within more supporting roles, kind of the same size role that you have with Athrun in Freedom and also with Cagley in Freedom. And even though Shinn's in a supporting role, the film would continue to make him more likable for audiences so that they can warm up to him, which then leads into the second film, the third and final of this trilogy, which would be Shinn focused. So you've had two films essentially that have allowed you to warm up more to the character of Shinn, who, you know, as much as I like him in Destiny, there's a lot of people that don't. So the whole purpose of doing two films with him prior to having him be the main star of the third one is so that you essentially allow the audience to like him a lot more. Much like Athrun's film, this would dive a lot more into his past, show a bit more of his family life prior to the orb attack beyond just the glimpses that we get in Destiny. And also a main focus would be his romance with Luna Maria, and you dive a lot more into her character, maybe like a lot more into her relationship with her sister, maybe touch on her past, maybe, you know, like anything to do with her parents, where she comes from, all that kind of thing. So you develop her character a lot more, but you'd also develop their relationship a lot more. And that's one of the things that I've never really been in love with, is their romance, because to me it always felt a bit forced and thrown in there just for the sake of, we have to have almost like the lead of Destiny have a romance after Stella obviously dies. And thus by the end of this film you would essentially bring the SEED franchise to a close, and you would have a trilogy of films where each one is focused on a different protagonist within this franchise. Like I said though, this is all completely hypothetical. However, if Bandai decide to go down this exact route, it's going to be pretty obvious where they got the inspiration from, and I will be expecting some compensation. Before I get out of here though, please do leave a like on this video. Also subscribe if you're a fan of anime and Japanese gaming content, and we'll see plenty more videos like this in the future. And let me know down in the comment section below your pitch for what you would like to see from the SEED franchise after Freedom. Do you think any of my ideas are any good, or do you think they're absolute garbage? I will not be offended if you think the latter. But as always, thank you so much for tuning into mchat today, and I'll see you guys next time.